Scrap Help to Buy, increase council tax, spend more money. The EU tells Britain how it should be running its economy. David Cameron needs allies like Angela Merkel in Europe. Should he do deals with her political rivals in Brussels? They're anti-Euro. They want a leaner Brussels and no more transfer of powers. Sound familiar? Well, a new German Eurosceptic party, the Alternative for Germany, had 7 MEPs elected last week and want to sit with David Cameron's Conservatives in the European Parliament. Trouble is that David Cameron needs to keep German Chancellor Angela Merkel on side if he's going to achieve anything in his renegotiation. And this new German Eurosceptic party is Angela Merkel's sworn political enemy. Well, in our Berlin studio is an MEP from Alternative for Germany, Beatrix von Storch. Welcome to the programme. Beatrix, tell us the main campaigning points of your party.
Well, for all of the campaign, what we were stressing is that we want to put reforms on the European Union. We want to strengthen the European realistic policy, and to bring it to one point, we're heading for a European Union as a federation of sovereign states, of sovereign democracies. And we oppose strongly the idea of having a federal state, a European Union as a federal state. I think this is the main point we're making, and this is our main political goal. This is what the Alternative for Germany has been founded for, and this will be our responsibility to stress this issue in the European Parliament.
So, perfect partners for the British Conservative Party?
I guess so, yes. I think we are highly compatible with the British Conservatives, as they want to put reforms on the European Union also, and so I would call ourselves the natural allies for the Tory party and for the ECR group, who's representing these ideas of reformation of the European Union within the Parliament.
OK, but do you accept that you are the sworn political enemy of the Chancellor Angela Merkel?
Well, I think at the moment we're opposing in one very central point, and this is what we want to have a deep reform on the European Union and on the European institutions. We don't want to have the European Union, as I said, as a federal state, and this is what is pushed forward from our Chancellor Merkel and from, by the way, all the other German parties also. And so this means that we have got a very important point where we are opposing each other.
OK,
right. Yeah,
well,
that's true.
Just hold on one moment, John Micklethwaite. So this would be ideal, wouldn't it, for the Conservative Party? They could be in the same group together. It
would be wonderful, except everyone in Europe knows that the single person who decides everything in Europe, or has the greatest negative power, is Mrs Merkel. You go and see any European leader at the moment. I think she has greater power than any person has had in Europe for a very, very long time, and it would mildly annoy her. That's the realistic part of this whole political discussion. As far as David Cameron and the Conservative Party is concerned, Beatrix, it's Angela Merkel who is far more important than you.
Well, if you look to the European Parliament, and if you want to strengthen a constructive way of reforms even within the Parliament, we need a strong group who's supporting this idea, and so that means we need a strong, it would be good to have a strong ECR. Okay, well, and I think we would be good members to do so, and I think finally it's going to be the members of the European Parliament who are voting us in to the group, and then it would be far more likely that we have a constructive discussion going on about the reformation of the system, and I think it would be a good sign to the people also that the European Parliament is taking a responsible position within this discussion. And I think it would be a brilliant idea to have German members to address these points from the floor of Brussels and Strasbourg.
Right, what do you think about David Cameron's plan for the in-out referendum, Britain's relationship with the EU?
Well, I think we are also very much supporting the idea of the self-determination of the people. So I think it's always a good idea to ask the people themselves what do they want? We want we want even in Germany to have these questions put to the people, because the parliament is not able from our constitution to decide about giving up our sovereignty to whomever, or to the European Union or to some other institutions. This is not what the parliament has been voted for. They are not allowed to pass away our sovereignty. So it's always a very good point to ask the people to participate in the political process.
Okay, now you've been described as a German Eurosceptic party. What do you think of UKIP, the UK Independence Party?
Well, I think they, in general ideas, they're heading towards the same directions. They want to have, well, they want to have Great Britain out of the European Union, and from the German taxpayers' point of view, that's not good for us. But it's in the end, I think it's good to ask the people, and this is what the UKIP is heading for, also to have a referendum on this idea. And if the outcome will be that Great Britain leave the European Union, well, that would be sad. That would be sad. We're not. Well, that would be not a wish, of course.
All right.
But if the people decide likewise, that's the way it is.
Okay. Well,
and I think to strengthen democracy, that's always good.
We have 4 new wonderful female MEPs, all beautiful, all intelligent. Joey Barton, eat your heart out. The Conservative Vicky Ford, Labour's Annalise Dodds, from the Liberal Democrats, their only successful candidate, Catherine Bearder, and from UKIP, Jane Collins. Welcome and congratulations to you all. What a packed studio we have.
Well, I think it's going to be very interesting because there's now a wave of new UKIP MEPs coming in, so there's going to be a stronger representation for the Eurosceptic voice over there.
Right, well, let's get to the grit of it all. I mean, Vicky Ford, there have been discussions already about the European Commission President rumbling on, and reports, of course, that David Cameron has made threats that the UK would have to leave if Jean-Claude Juncker became the Commission President. Who would be your dream candidate for that job?
I want to see a reformer.
Who?
Okay. We've said a number of times that Europe needs to change and our relationship with it needs to change too, and I want to see a candidate that is not just more of the same like Juncker or Schulz.
Well, let's hear from another senior politician, former Prime Minister Tony Blair, talking about this issue earlier today. Let's have a look.
I am not a candidate. Don't get my position mixed up with this. That's not going to happen. In respect of who should be the President of the Commission, my view is very much, and I think Prime Minister Renzi expressed this view yesterday also, that is, we should just look for the best person to do the job. There shouldn't be any predisposition towards one person or against one person. We should just find the best person to do the job. That's the single most important thing. It's an important job, and if you define it in the way that I'm defining it, in other words, you want someone who's capable of driving through that big agenda, then that's the type of person we should go for.
What about Tony Blair? He said no.
You know, this is the man who gave away the British rebate, handed more power to Brussels. I mean, what the parties have just said in this election, very firmly in my region, is we do not want more of the same. They want change.
Enda Kenny, I think, has pretty well said he's not up for doing this. I mean, there aren't that many other names being bandied about. What is
with
your...
Mr Juncker, that again, he is totally against reform. He's almost federalist, so that would be a disaster. And I'm so relieved to hear Tony Blair say that he's not going to be a candidate because, quite frankly, he's a megalomaniac and a warmonger.
Right. Well, who would you have then?
It's a difficult decision because looking down the list, there's not many names there that appeal to me very much because they're all, or whichever way they dress it up, they're all for more integration into the EU, which is not what we're for.
But there's the irony, isn't it? I mean, you're going to have bigger representation in an institution that you don't believe in, and in fact you're just campaigning for Britain to leave. So is it just going to be UKIP's role to disrupt and actually create dissent in the European Union? Is that going to be the role from now on?
No, I don't think that's the way we look at things. Look, we certainly aren't going over there to join the club, but we're there to do a job. We're there actually to be the voice, the eyes and the ears of the people that voted for us, and they voted very, very strongly in this last election.
We were the only one brave enough to stand up for it, and that's absolutely the right thing when we have other parties that didn't.
Right.
Yeah, it was a tough election.
But that view's been derided by the voters, hasn't it? Your view has been derided, whether it's a kicking because of being in government. The pro-European party of in your particular case, has been
But
completely
we were the
crushed.
only party that's really talking about it. The Tories were kicking it down to the long grass, and the Labour Party was just talking about local, national politics.
What's Labour then, if it's not the party of in?
We are the party of in, but we're a party of a Europe which has been reformed, and reformed in ways that we actually are very upfront about, unlike, unfortunately, the coalition, because we are the party that says we need to have an EU that's more focused on jobs and on growth. And we, for a very long time, have set out what we would like to see change in the EU, and that's really not been the case with the other parties, and that's very disappointing.
But you can't reform the main issue that people voted on as well. When you were talking to them on the street, they're very, very concerned about migration. And whenever we're in the EU, there is no reform on migration.
Can I just ask then, are you against the idea of limiting the freedom of movement of people within the EU?
I think that freedom of movement has been very important for British people and for migrants into this country as well.
We got a kicking, like all the parties got a kicking, because, I mean, the Conservatives and Labour both got a drubbing.
Best result since 1994. Most votes since 1994.
Labour should have come second. Labour, you know, because...
As I say, best result for 20 years. So,
yeah.
you know, I
if we got a kicking, I want another kicking in Newark. That would be fantastic.
Right, well, we'll come on to that in just a moment. What about the renegotiation? That, in the end, there's pressure being put on David Cameron for firmer plans and policies in terms of repatriating powers. He's promised the referendum. I mean, to some extent, you've had your high point in the European elections, many critics would argue, and that will be that.
Right, well, let me say, the way that the EU actually treats David Cameron with great disrespect, and especially with Mr Juncker, who says that David now is out trying to use blackmail if he becomes president. Well, that's just ridiculous. So it shows how much clout we have in the EU. But there is no renegotiation or reform on migration if we're in the EU. But if Mr Juncker gets in, he will be a part of a massive bloc, the EPP. He is also with Merkel. That is going to have a great influence. No reform, and it will go to federalism. So if you ask me who I definitely didn't want to be president, we're looking at Tony Blair and Mr Juncker, that is for certain.
Well, first of all, you have to have next year's general election. In next year's general election, there will be a choice of voting for these two parties, which is more of the same, or for parties which give you a chance of a renegotiation and a referendum.
But, Vicky, there'll be no chance of a renegotiation, will there? If Jean-Claude Juncker becomes the Commission President, who is a federalist, who wants to see more Europe, not less, it's going to make it extremely difficult for David Cameron to renegotiate the sort of aspects that he wants to.
And that is why I started off by saying I think electing Jean-Claude Juncker would be a backward...
He's Angela Merkel's favourite. Should Labour offer a referendum now, an in-out referendum, on the basis of the MEPs that were elected, the success of Eurosceptic parties? Should Ed Miliband offer a referendum?
Well, as I mentioned before, this was actually Labour's best result in a European election for 20 years. Nonetheless, we do need to listen to people, and actually for a very long time Labour's been saying we would offer people a referendum if it looks like Britain's relationship with the rest of the EU is going to change.
That's all for today. Thanks to all of our guests.